Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton here with Brandon. Not a ton of news for English Weiss this week, but there was one new thing that we wanted to talk about, and it actually has to do with the content creation side of Weiss. Bushiroad, for its next English exclusive RWBY, which is coming out in December, partnered with our friend Lunchbox over at Casually Weiss Schwarz to reveal some of the new cards from the set. This is, I believe, the first time that Bushiroad has done this with an English content creator, and I think there's some real potential in what this could mean for WeissTube going forward. Brandon, this is something that we've seen in other card games. Magic does it, Pokemon does it, now maybe Weiss is doing it?
Yeah, it's something really interesting because we haven't really seen Bushiroad do this. And especially, what this tells me is that Bushiroad is paying attention to what stuff is coming out from like the content creation side. They're looking and seeing what the community is talking about regarding the card game, as well as some of the different reactions that the community may have towards it. Reaching out and partnering with Lunchbox to get some of this information out, I think is a great step from Bushiroad and the willingness to help support the game in some way.
It's always interesting when game publishers are working with content creators. And like obviously as Weiss tubers, it's kind of odd to be having this conversation out loud in our content creation. This whole conversation is fraught with some weirdness, but in other games, the relationship between the publishers and the content creators is such an odd one. In Magic, for example, the biggest Magic YouTubers are oftentimes very, very critical of Wizards of the Coast. And for good reason. Wizards has made some very questionable decisions in recent years. And I think that to some extent that is similar to the relationship that Weiss YouTubers have with Bushiroad. Like, we've been pretty open about our criticisms of Bushiroad, both, sets they've released, what they haven't released, the way that they've handled announcements and tournaments. Like, there have been valid criticisms, and there's been praise when praise is due. So I think it's interesting that Bushiroad is at least testing the waters with this, and I don't know what direction that's going to go in, because there are plenty of great content creators out here that Bushiroad can and should partner with, like 3-6 Cancel, obviously, Pittsburgh, obviously a major channel as well. Like, there are plenty of people that Bushiroad could partner with. And I guess we'll see what this means going forward. It's an interesting development that still is pretty open-ended at this juncture. But what we got from that video that Lunchbox did, which came out yesterday, link in the description, is some reveals for that new RWBY set, like we said. So let's talk about that set. Specifically, we're going to talk about the 4 level 3s that had already been revealed. So if you want to see the new stuff, go watch Lunchbox's video. He talks about those cards in some detail. So we're going to talk about the 4 level 3s that we think are the most interesting. 2 of them are on combos, 2 of them are comboless. And first, we will look at the 3-2 RWBY combo. Red, 9,000 power. If all your characters are Remnant, which is the main trait for the characters that we've seen so far, this card gets 2,000 power. And on play heal. This card combos with the Standby Climax. When the Standby Climax is placed in your Climax area, if this card is in your center stage and your memory has 2 or more of a specific card that we haven't seen yet, you may rest this card. If you do, deal 3 and clock kick whatever's sitting across from this as long as it's level 3 or lower. This is an odd combo. It's kind of like from Konosuba, the Megumin Union combo from the newer set. It basically does the same kind of thing, except it's more or less costless, which is pretty huge. It actually makes this much more cost efficient than that one, because the cost includes, having these 2 specific cards in memory, so it forces you to build your deck a certain way, but instead of paying extra stock.
Essentially, you're paying the stock out early. You're paying the stock to transition those cards into memory in some way, presumably.
Right, exactly. So I think that makes this a lot more viable, for one. I still don't know if it's doing enough actual damage. It's odd that it's on a standby. We haven't seen what else there is in this set. We don't even know if there are more standby triggers. We don't know if there's an 8 standby list that's going to be playable. Like, we don't know anything about that. The fact that this is on a standby is a little bit odd, I think. Mostly because, as of right now, we don't really have a standby target for when this comes down. Yet, obviously, still early. But the big thing with this is that I don't know if it's going to do enough damage consistently, right? Like, if you have 2 of these down, you can clock kick a couple of cards, which is nice. It also gets around hexproof and all this other stuff, so, you don't have to worry about any of that. It takes place on climax play. The burn is, decent. It's burning for 3. And if you hit one of those, you have a chance to close in your off lane with some stuff that, we'll get to that in a minute. So it's decent. I don't think it's necessarily explosive enough, especially against something that's compressed, to consistently close games. The way this looks right now, I would say that its ceiling is being played casually. Weiss Schwarz kind of requires that extra bit of damage now at the top, kind of that 7th instance of damage almost, in order to close a game more consistently, and I don't know if this combo can get there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that you're onto something there, that it feels like it doesn't quite have enough to close out a game. And I think that's something that we saw with Konosuba a little bit, how that same top end, same idea, it's kind of broken up into individual cards. So like you could have just one of these and go off with 2 other off finishers, or you could play double combo and go with another off finisher.
Yeah.
Which I think is what this leans more towards. Is kind of a double finisher and then another off piece.
Yeah, because the challenge is, if you tri-field this and your opponent's at 3-0, you need 2 of these 3s to stick, and that's not great. It's not something that you can reasonably expect.
You're saying, hey, if your opponent has 2 climaxes on the top of their deck, you're toast.
Exactly. And the other challenge with this kind of combo, which Konosuba ran into, is that there's no stock after this. You're not creating stock because you're not attacking. So
it needs to really close out a game at that point.
It needs to win. And I don't know if this wins. Not yet. There might be some more pieces that make it work. And there might also be something that I'm going to be keeping an eye out for that would let you stand something that came in off the standby trigger, so that you could, in theory, play the standby trigger, bring this on, stand it, and then rest it. Nothing yet seen in that direction, but I could see it as a way to potentially reduce this cost a little bit, so that you could use that stock to play something else that could potentially do more damage. Again, pure speculation at this point. We've seen like 10 cards.
Oh, yeah.
Still so much that we don't know about this set. So this level 3 was in Lunchbox's video. It's on choice. On play, look it up to 3, add 1. The combo says that when you play the choice climax, you choose one of your other characters, and that character gets cancel burn 2. It's basically Saber from Heaven's Field 2, but it might be worse. Maybe not. I don't know. But, like, I don't like this. I don't. It's the only way I can see this being viable is if you have 3 of them down and each of them are giving another 1 cancel burn, so that you have a field full of cancel burn 2s. But even then, it's still I'm not a fan. I don't like this. I want to like this more, but it's missing damage that it needs if it's going to be a viable top end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, by itself, it seems pretty weak. You're going to add 1 to hand. There's no cost to the effect here. So you're plussing 1 in hand, so what you're drawing into hand needs to be useful in some way to kind of get the full effect of this card. Kind of like with the other one, it feels like that this combo needs something else alongside it in order to make this work.
Yeah.
Both of these, I think, actually work pretty decently with a third card that's been revealed already. And that's actually the Weiss Battle Stance Restander, where it gains power on play, and it has a pay 2, ditch 2, that at the end of the card's attack, it can restand. So not requiring a reverse to restand, it has that additional instance of damage that might be needed. So for example, like with this Yang combo, you have the restander that if one of those 2 swings gets canceled, then you have the other 2, potentially 2 lanes that grant cancel burn to this one card. to be able to then deal essentially 4 damage, potentially, if one of the restands gets canceled. So you could potentially just kind of put all of your eggs into one basket there.
Yeah. There's another level 3, I think it's from the trial deck, that can pump soul, technically, but it's not really viable. Like, you need something that can do damage on its own. And that's where, like, this Weiss is decent. This is the third lane for both of these two combos. Like I said, pay 2, pitch 2, restand.
Yeah.
Doesn't need a reverse, really straightforward.
It's also 2 instances of damage on one card.
Potentially, yeah.
The potential of those 2 instances is what those 2 cards need.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily have to be a restander like this. It could be something else. But
yeah, because obviously still more cards yet to be revealed. But like you said, this is 2 instances of damage that you give both of the damages to the restand.
And then just hope they don't have a money counter.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Hexproof would be nice, but we'll see what happens.
If you can give this hexproof, you're looking at a more efficient version of the Saber combo from Heaven's Feel 2. But if this doesn't have hexproof, then this can just be completely shut down by anything that runs a money counter.
Oh yeah, easy.
And there are still enough money counters running around that that's important. But yeah, I mean, like, you don't mind swinging for 3 twice. If one of them sticks, then you need to stick 4 off of this card having 2 vanilla swings for 3, and then if one of those gets canceled, the 2 swings for 2. Like, that's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Yeah, no, it's not. I think it's generically fine.
It's playable.
Yeah.
It's not meta, but it's playable.
And then realistically, like, because we only have, like, 10-ish cards.
Again, yeah. There's so little that we know.
Deck building doesn't make a whole lot of sense here, just kind of more to speculation, which is kind of where we're at. Kind of trying to speculate based off of just the few combos that we've seen, trying to get an idea of what the set looks like.
The very, very early returns on this are probably that you run the choice combo with the restander, probably off of the level 1. The level 1 being on pants, gets up to 6,000, 7,000 with the combo. On attack, look it up to 3, your opponent chooses 1, puts it into hand, and then you pick one of the other 2, put it back on top of your deck, and put the other one into your waiting room. Which is, it's not terrible. Like, it gets decently big at 1 on offense and, you know, holds that cross turn at 6, which isn't terrible, but, you know, still just a pretty generic +1, literally no choice involved kind of combo. But again, like, given that this is the only level 1 we've seen so far, but it is on blue, and the other key card, which is probably the best card revealed, other than maybe the restander, is the Blake 3/2, which is basically just the Mesmerizing Water Goddess profile from Konosuba. You know, the early play stock healer that we've seen in almost every set, you know, for the past several sets now. So you can kind of start to see what a deck might look like that plays Pants Choice, which, you know, 8+ing triggers, a halfway decent top end, a stock healer, like, it's not bad. But it's again underwhelming, which is, you know, the theme for English exclusives. They're always this kind of underwhelming, because you can't have something that's exclusive to certain parts of the world being dominant in a world's kind of format. No English exclusive is going to be good until and unless that restriction is lifted. But there's some decent stuff here. You can build a deck out of RWBY and take it to locals, and it won't suck. Like, just based off what we've seen now, I'm willing to say that pretty affirmatively, that RWBY won't suck. I don't know, Brandon, like, what's your take on RWBY at large, given the handful of cards that we've seen?
Like, I think there's definitely potential here, especially with the early play that exists for stock healer. Like, we have some decent tech options starting to show up. I think every deck's going to splash some blue, just because I think that early play is going to be just worth it enough, no matter what else the rest of the set has.
Yeah.
So I think splashing blue is going to be important. And if you're going to splash blue anyway, I think that leads to either the red or the yellow top end here, alongside the blue restander. Like, if you're going to splash blue, I think you run the restander as well as kind of like that off finisher.
Yeah.
Regardless. Like, even if we get other off finishers, you might still just run the restander.
No, I think you run the restander until we see something better.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the real question, is going to be if there's something better. And realistically, if you're going to have the better thing in a color you're not going to run,
Yeah.
then it's kind of like the restand is probably still you're going to be your way out.
Blue's going to be easy because you're already going to want to get blue. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Blue definitely is going to be that splash color in some capacity, whether if it's not already going to be one of the main colors. Like, we don't see a blue top end here.
We haven't seen the top end for blue. It looks like this is going to strictly be a tricolor set, which honestly is better for synergy because it means that things can only be one of three colors. You can get all three colors in most of these kinds of sets relatively easily. So probably makes it a lot easier to actually get stuff teched in. But until we see, the primary blue top end, we're not going to know probably what the top end looks like. I'm assuming it will be a Weiss combo, maybe a Blake combo. Seeing as how Weiss is on the level 1, actually it makes sense that Blake would be on the level 3 because they're both apparently sharing blue. And, who knows what the other level 1 combos might be. Like, if we get a really good level 1 combo in either other color, that changes everything, right? It changes the entire way that you're building, and then maybe you're doing a true 3-color kind of thing, where maybe you're running this choice combo at the top, but you've got blue at level 2 so you can get your early plays down and also have access to the restander, but your level 1 game is red, like, who knows? And there's also the possibility for an 8 standby build. Probably will get a second standby trigger, I would imagine.
You say that, but 7 Deadly Sins didn't.
It's true. 7 Deadly Sins literally didn't. So, and again, that could be because Bushiroad is going to some extent, kneecap anything that is an English exclusive. So far, nothing that we've seen has indicated that RWBY is going to be that powerful of a set, but it also will be playable. It's not going to come out as hot garbage the way that, say, Mob Psycho did. Like, Mob Psycho was basically unplayable out of the box, and same with, like, Overlord, right? So, sometimes these, English exclusives, or sometimes even, non-English exclusives come over and they're immediately bad. This is not that. If I'm a RWBY fan and I already knew I was going to buy into RWBY because I like the source material, I am breathing a sigh of relief with these cards because I at least know there will be a deck to build and play with this that isn't going to be bad. And that's a really low hurdle to clear, but not every English exclusive has cleared that bar. They can't all be Adventure Time, but at least this one's not Mob. And that's all we've got. Thank you for being here. Tell us what you think of RWBY in the comments, both the show and the set, because engagement is great. Also, quick note, really sorry about last week. I was sick and sounded awful. Brandon will have the next deck profile next week, and we'll be back to our regular schedule. Again, super sorry about last week. It's the first time I think that we've actually missed an upload day, didn't upload something in and around the time we, expected to. You didn't want to hear my voice last week. It was pretty bad. Brandon can attest. I did not sound like a human. And I think you might even be able to tell, like, I'm still not, like, 100% there. But Brandon will be back next week with a deck tech. We'll have gameplay for it. 5 cards, 5 minutes will be on Thursday. This week we're back to our regular schedule. And then in 2 weeks we'll be back for another Clock Talk. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And have a good one.
We'll see you then.